All right, now I love heuristic search. That's actually what I devote a lot of my life to, but it's not the only thing in town. Heuristic search is really good for planning. Like if you're a little robot and you want to figure out what to do and someone says, hey, go clean all the rooms. You got to do heuristic search to find what your plan is. But there are a lot of other things that people harsh on their robots to do. And some of those problems are heuristic search problems, and some of them are called constraint satisfaction problems, like map coloring. What if someone shows you a map of Australia and asks you to color in the territories so that no adjacent territories have the same color? That's a kind of subroutine that you see a lot in intelligent systems. Like I don't know, if I'm going to work, then I don't wear my big, thick wool socks because I'm not going to be able to get my work shoes on. Like they're incompatible. There's a constraint. It says I can't wear my big, thick, woolly socks and my work shoes at the same time. So I need to find a solution to the problem of what am I going to wear in the morning that satisfies all the constraints. Traveling salesman problem is another example. I need to visit all these cities. Well, that's not actually a very good example. Map coloring, great example. I need to. Oh, there it is, right on a slide. Look at that. Pick a color for each unit such that you don't get two adjacent units with the same color. N queens is a classic constraint satisfaction problem. Some people actually do this for fun. I don't know about those kind of people, but whatever. Arrange the queens on a chessboard so that they're not attacking each other. So how do we solve this? How do we solve problems like that? I'll give you a hint. It's not A star. It's not A star. And why? Well, we'll talk about why not in a sec, but it's not A star. These are called constraint satisfaction problems. We have constraints.
You don't use N star because the problem is defined by constraints.
What's A star got against constraints?
It's a more predictable world.
Your vacuum world's perfectly predictable. For every action, we have an exact deterministic outcome.
With at least the Queen's problem, there's a very definitive finite set of solutions.
Yeah. And, well, there's a finite set of solutions to the vacuum world problem. It's just really big. As long as you're doing cycle checking, as long as you guarantee you're not going to start looping, then there do exist a finite number of paths. But there is a difference. There is something that's finite in these kinds of problems and sort of very well constrained that you don't have in the vacuum world planning problems. And that's the length of the plan, the number of decisions there are to make. When you start off in vacuum world, you know the number of dirty cells, but you have no idea how long the plan is going to be. It could be 5 steps, it could be 80 steps. You really have no clue. Whereas this, it's like, there are N countries. I choose a color for each country, I am done. Exactly N decisions to be made. I know it at the beginning, and I make those N, and I'm done. Now, it may be hard to find ones that satisfy all the constraints, but at least I know exactly how many steps it's going to be. If I think about a search tree, maybe here I'm making one decision, and I branch on the different ways of making that decision. Say I've got 3 different colors. I can color that thing, and then I got the next thing to color in, and I've got maybe 3 colors. It could be I make all the decisions, and then I am done. Like, done. Use a little filled circle. Done. Right? This tree has bounded depth. It's an algorithm that works well if you've got a depth bound. Yeah. So constraint satisfaction problems are almost always solved with depth first search. So that's what we're going to use. So these constraint satisfaction problems differ from shortest path problems in that we got fixed maximum depth, we have explicit constraints. If it's a satisfaction problem, most of these problems, like it doesn't matter as long as you satisfy all the constraints, life is good. So you have this very binary objective, like it either satisfies them all or doesn't. Whereas in shortest path problems, like you're optimizing, you got a whole bunch of different plans, you want to find the very cheapest one. It's not just a question of finding a plan that gets to the goal, you want to find the least cost one usually. Usually the goal depth is unknown. So there are different kinds of problems. For me, it's really this fixed depth thing is the real distinguishing characteristic. Is everyone clear on the difference between these two kinds of problems? Okay. So you guys have already showed me the first algorithm for constraint satisfaction. It's just this backtracking, depth first search. When you get down here, if this solution that has where we've made all the decisions, if this doesn't satisfy all the constraints, depth first search goes back to the most recent decision and makes it differently. That's called chronological backtracking because you go back to the most recent decision in time, chronologically, most recent decision. Chronological backtracking. Once we're done here, we go back up and we go here. So that's the fancy name for depth first search is chronological backtracking. And we really are backtracking here. Like, did we talk about this in class before about the use of the word backtracking with A star and how I wasn't so keen on it? Did we talk about that in class? We did. Jonathan says we did. So, well, there we go. Okay, he's seared into his psyche for the rest of his college career. So we really are backtracking here. When you're doing depth first search, you can maintain, and because, thank God, we have just a finite number of decisions to make. Right? You can just like keep a little array of the decision variables and what are the current values. Like color this one red and this one green and that one blue and this one red and this one red. And then when you backtrack, you just wipe out the most recent decision you made. Well, who knows? Maybe it was this decision you just made. And you write over it with something else. We really are backtracking. So you don't have to generate child nodes or any of that. You just need to keep some call stack that remembers what's the most recent decision you made so you can undo it. So that's chronological backtracking. You really are backtracking here. We don't really, it doesn't make quite as much sense to think about a search frontier, even though there is one implicitly defined here. So that's chronological backtracking, simplest ever constraint satisfaction algorithm. What can we do better than this? Other than going down here, seeing whether we satisfied all the constraints, trying this, see if we satisfy all the constraints, see if we satisfy all the constraints, go up here, come down, see if we satisfy all the constraints. How can we do better than that? Please help us, Frank.
At an intermediate node, we can check if there's any constraints.
God bless you. Yeah. So we can check. Oftentimes, like if the constraint is between my socks and my shoes, then I don't have to like have my shirt on in order to check those constraints. I can do it the instant I put my shoes on. I can check the constraint, or the instant I select my shoes. I can check whether they're compatible with my socks, and if it's not, I can say, oh, whoa, you're just going to stop here. Don't even go beneath here and try different shirts. Just immediately, I've already messed up. So I don't even know if there's a name for that. It's just such an obvious thing to do. Yeah, well, I guess it's what I wrote here on this slide that's entitled Chronological Backtracking, so maybe it's part of chronological backtracking. Don't even expand a partial solution if it violates a constraint. So that's the very simplest kind of CSP algorithm, constraint satisfaction problem algorithm. It's this chronological backtracking. Everyone okay with that?